Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. It's a very noisy day here at Aoyama Park next to Tokyo National Art Center. Summer has finally arrived here in Tokyo. It's very hot and humid, and as you can tell, the cicadas have finally woken up and are out singing. They came out a little bit late this year due to the cool weather we had for most of July. And I think I commented in my last video about how quiet the park was, but that is definitely not the case today. We returned from our trip to Hokkaido a few days ago, and we had a wonderful time. We were up there for 9 days, and while we were there, we were able to enjoy a lot of wonderful food, enjoy a lot of outdoor activities, and enjoy some of the most beautiful scenery which you can find in Japan. The last time we went to Hokkaido was in February to go skiing, and we couldn't really see much on that trip because there was so much snow. On our drive up to the hotel from the airport, it was kind of snowing, so there wasn't much visibility. And while we were at the hotel, the snow was so heavy that we couldn't even see to the parking lot from the hotel, from our hotel room window. So we couldn't really enjoy the scenery much on our last trip. But this trip was quite wonderful, and the scenery in Hokkaido turned out to be magnificent. Hokkaido is a very popular place with a lot of foreigners, mainly from Australia, Europe, and Canada, and many of them own property in the Niseko area. And after visiting and spending some time in the summer there, I can see why it has become such a popular place. We are planning our next trip to Hokkaido in the winter time to go skiing, and we plan to go with some friends and try to enjoy the snow and the famous powder snow which Niseko has. I'm not much of a skier, I've never have been, but my wife loves skiing and our daughter is trying to learn, so hopefully maybe I'll be able to pick it up a little better, learn how to ski a little better than my usual, I guess, terrible skiing. And we'll have some more fun up there and be able to enjoy the wonderful food and escape from Tokyo again for a while. I'll be posting another video talking about Hokkaido and Niseko if you're interested in seeing it. I'll probably post that within a couple of days or so. If you haven't subscribed already and want to see the video, please subscribe, and so you can check it out when it comes out. So today's video is about another rangefinder camera, and one of the more difficult to find and unusual rangefinder cameras. This one is the Mamiya Magazine 35 camera. Now, the Mamiya Magazine 35 camera was released in 1957, and it was designed to allow photographers to use several kinds of film, or at least two kinds of film, in one camera simultaneously. And you could switch between the two different kinds of film just by changing the film magazine, which was attached to the camera. The way it works is quite simple. When you look at the camera like this, it looks like maybe a slightly tall and large regular rangefinder camera, but if you look at the bottom, there's this big red dial on the bottom with a lock button. And if you depress this button and turn the dial from the lock to the unlock section, you can remove the entire film chamber and film back magazine, whatever you like to call it, assembly. And the Mamiya Magazine 35 came with a single magazine, and additional magazines were available for an additional cost. When you bought the separate film magazine, it included a case which could carry it inside. Without the magazine, the camera is quite an odd-looking instrument. All you have is the lens and shutter assembly, the focusing system, and the film winding system. Putting the camera back together is quite easy. You simply slide it, push the button, and turn it back to where it locks. I don't often come across these cameras for any reasonable price here in Japan. They tend to be a little bit expensive. They are quite an interesting and very well-made camera, and over the last 10 years, this is only the third example which I have come by. The standard lens in these cameras was either a 4.5 centimeter f2.8 or a 5 centimeter f2.8, and this is the example of the 5 centimeter lens. Supposedly, from what I have read, this is the only combination of lenses which were ever made for the Mamiya Magazine 35. But oddly, in my closet I have an old one which I bought, which has a 4.5mm f1.9 lens, which is quite interesting. I have never seen another one, and I have never heard of another one. And though I've done a lot of research on these cameras in English and Japanese, I've never seen any information or an example of another one. Unfortunately, the camera doesn't work. It has a worn winding mechanism which doesn't allow the shutter to charge. And one of the stops on the focus helicoid is broken out, so the camera focuses past infinity and comes disconnected from the helicoid. So I'm trying to find an older magazine camera, Magazine 35, which isn't working, to use parts to try to restore this what appears to be a very rare f1.9 model camera. So we'll go ahead and get back to this f2.8 model camera, and I'll describe all the features and functions and how to use it. The interesting thing about the Mamiya Magazine 35 is how clean the design is. If you look at the top, it's very simple. There isn't anything in the way of numbers or dials or anything like that. You have nothing at all over the top left here, where you would normally find a rewind knob. In the center here you find the standard, of course, flash shoe, and you have a very typical shutter release button which accepts a standard cable release, and this is the film winding lever, and surprisingly smooth and quiet operation for a rangefinder camera, particularly one which has a separate film magazine. On the back of the camera we have the viewfinder window, we have an access screw for adjusting the rangefinder, and here we have an indicator telling you if the shutter is charged or not, so quite a convenient feature. If it's showing red or bright orange, I think it's red, then that means the shutter is charged and the camera is ready to fire. On the bottom of the camera we have the tripod socket, which happens to be surrounded by the indicator for setting the film speed in the camera. Under here is a film loaded indicator to let you know if there is film loaded in the camera. And of course this is a locking mechanism which I described earlier. An interesting thing about the locking mechanism is when you unlock the camera, a door closes across the front of the film to prevent any light from exposing the film. And when you reinstall the magazine and latch it, excuse me, I didn't latch it there properly. Okay, it should work now. When you latch it and open the door, of course you can see that the dark slide is open, and now light can contact the film from the lens. And over here on the far side we have the film counter dial. So if you want to see how many exposures you have left, you have to actually take a look at the bottom of the camera when you're operating it. Since this is a rangefinder camera and a fixed lens rangefinder camera, the important features and functions are going to be found around the lens body. So the first thing we have is the focusing tab and focusing helicoid, which is measured in meters on this camera. And in front of that we have the focus scale, or depth of field scale, to let you know what your depth of field is for any given aperture. Here we have a sync for attaching your flash sync cord if you're using a flash. And of course here we have the selector between M, F, and X for using a flash. In front of that we have the shutter speed dial, and we have a range of bulb and 1 second all the way up to 1/500th of a second. And the frontmost dial is for adjusting the aperture from f2 to f22. And we also have a EV scale in the middle. It's not coupled to either the shutter speed ring or the aperture speed ring, but you can turn these together or separately if you like, and if you have an old light meter which uses an EV system, it's quite easy to use the Mamiya Magazine 35 camera. Overall, the Mamiya Magazine 35 is an amazing camera with extremely high quality materials and workmanship, and wonderfully smooth and easy to operate. It has a very large and bright viewfinder and rangefinder assembly, and the one in this particular camera is especially nice. One of the odd things about it is that it doesn't have frame lines in it, so you pretty much just look through, and what you see around the outside is going to be what you see or what the film is going to see when you shoot it. So I guess that's about it for my video about the Mamiya Magazine 35. I'll be posting more videos soon, so if you'd like to see more videos about vintage Japanese cameras, please subscribe. I'll be selling this camera in my online store. I also list it in my Etsy and eBay store, so if you're interested in buying this or another vintage Japanese camera, please check the description below the video for links to my stores. If you use my online store, you will get a slight discount. As I said, I'll be posting videos about our trip to Hokkaido and also about a few other rangefinder and other kind of cameras. So I hope you tune in again soon, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much.